Welcome to my podcast, All Things Agriculture. I'm your host, Eric Carey, and thank you for tuning in. On this podcast, get to know those who work in agriculture on a daily basis. Find out what they do, the challenges and opportunities they face, and what they think the future holds for agriculture. You'll also have a chance to hear what they do for fun when they aren't working hard to feed the world. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing to my channel and leaving a thumbs up and a comment below. If you prefer the audio version, you can listen for free on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. And if you'd like to get into contact with me, please email me at allthingsagr@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to All Things Agriculture Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, I am with Mr. Patrick Redmond. Pat, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Eric?
Good. Thanks for coming down. I know it's a little bit of a drive. And
glad to be here and excited to be a part of what you're doing and help support and hopefully provide some insight and catch up with you here.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've seen each other, so I'm looking forward to catching up.
Yeah.
So I guess there's nothing really new to tell about the audience. Guess I've got a slate of people lined up in the coming weeks, so keep staying tuned and you'll see more and more videos, or if you listen on Spotify, so just stay tuned.
So it's subscribe, review, and resubscribe.
Yeah, or share, whatever. Yeah, I usually don't say any. I guess in the intro I say it, but yeah, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. So, anyway, Patrick, so I guess I'll start out with how does a young man from Scipio Center, a dairy farmer, turn into a wine and duck man?
Yeah. So I'll give a little background for those that don't know me, but I grew up on a small dairy in Scipio Center, so Cuyahoga County, right? And we averaged probably 60 cows. We'd go up or down a little bit as I was growing up. And then you and I, so actually not far from here. It's only 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
And then ended up going to Cornell from from high school and into Cornell, and that's where you and I really met.
Mm-hmm.
Probably our paths crossed before that.
We played basketball.
Yeah, basketball. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you were the redhead.
Yeah, the lone redhead on that Southern Cuyahoga team, and
stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. The tall skinny. I was real skinny then, right? Yeah.
You were real skinny.
But so then ended up at Cornell where we really kind of got you and I, our stories really crossed and intertwined, and AGR, obviously we were together. And when I was a sophomore, I guess it would have been, in college, we sold the cows, my family. So we sold the dairy cows, and then we transitioned it into a crop operation. So my dad and I still actually manage that farm and run that farm, selling corn, silage, and haylage to another local dairy. Then from there I took a few different internships, one in a genetics lab, one selling chemicals for a summer. Went to Aiken's, our friend Ryan Aiken's farm, worked there for a summer, which was just great. Got to, live on the St. Lawrence River and soak up the sunshine whenever I could, and built a barn, and, it's just the Aiken's family is amazing. And I had this thought the other day, all the families I've got to work with and for have just been amazing experiences, from the Aikens and the Mattoons and then the Zubers, and now at Herman Wiemer where I work. So my transition was from a 60 cow dairy kid, and now I'm a vineyard manager for Herman J. Wiemer and Standing Stone Vineyards. So I manage one of our vineyard sites and then bounce around helping on the other sites. And then I also am now an owner at the Spotted Duck Creamery, which I think it's official, I guess.
It's a pretty well-known ice cream shop, isn't it? In that area.
We just recently were rewarded with the top Yelp dessert for Rochester.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're off to a really good start.
Good job, Pat.
Now we got to hold that standard. So yeah. So it's been a pretty wild transition, basically, because out of college, I worked for the Mattoon family at Pine Hollow Dairy for 4 years. And then from there, went to Zuber Farms for 2 years. So we went to school with Anika, so it was her family's farm. So it was, some different connections that have worked me along the way. And then through, I gotta stop saying through a combination of sources and family friends. So one of the owners at Herman Wiemer is a family friend, but that's how I kind of jumped into that. To, made the transition from dairy management to vineyard management. So I don't know where we want to start, whether it's with talking dairy farms or if you want to go in chronological order or just
it's I guess we can start I guess early on with your dad. Your home farm is still just crops, right?
Yeah,
cows are gone.
Yeah,
or
so
do you have any animals?
No animals currently. It's a 200-acre farm that we kind of it's the farm my grandparents bought and started. It's a little over 65 years old now, I think, since we've been there. It's the Hoskins farm before that. And so my dad and I just, we kind of, as it transitioned, it's our side, it's not almost a side hustle, but it's just our way of keeping the land in production and keeping it, in agriculture and in dairy. It's kind of now it's actually one of my ties to dairy farming, basically. It's kind of how I, utilize it and use it. And it's good because it allows my dad and I to work together, which is something I really enjoy. So that's a lot of fun.
And for people who don't know much about Cuyahoga County, Scipio especially, that's prime farm country. Like that's
honey oil, silt
that's
loam
some of the best
with,
of the best.
Some good slope and drainage, and it's
big, nice open fields.
So my grandfather, tells me it's the best land in the world. So. He might be biased about it, but
just a little.
It's really nice farmland and really rich, and it was growing up on a dairy farm. I think is one of the greatest places and ways to grow up, right? So we didn't take a ton of vacations, and I had to work a lot as a kid, but I loved it. For me, it was just something I loved. Like I would go when I'd get home from school, I'd be out in the farm, right? Like I remember taking my dad coffee on snow days, right? Like he'd be milking cows and I'd go deliver him coffee. It's like, I must have been 10. It's one of those memories so far back. I barely, I claim that it scarred me because, I would spill coffee on myself sometimes and end up in tears by the time I got to the barn, Didn't actually, but that's my memory. So I'd get to help milk cows, which was just.
I always thought it was when you had those snow days and you go out and you help out in the barn. It was weird because it's like you're supposed to be in school, but you're out. Like this is usually I'm out here at 5 o'clock at night. Suddenly it's 10 in the morning. I'm exciting. In the barn. Wow, this is something cool and neat.
It's fun.
Yeah. I get to see what Dad does during the afternoon, and
you get free labor.
Yeah. It's a win-win. Well, when it's a win for your dad too.
Yeah, he does shovel some snow for me. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So that was kind of my interest in agriculture, I guess, started really young, right? Because I just would go outside and, then I was on tractors pretty much at, maybe, I guess, 12, I was probably on my own. Had to be big enough to be able to push, pull up on the steering wheel and push both the clutch and the brake down at the same time. So there's a tale all this time. Any farm kid has kind of done that. And growing up, being able, making hay and chopping corn and getting all the experience.
Those small square bales, right?
Yeah. I got, so it's so funny. So we actually, we didn't do a ton of small square bales because we actually got a round baler. That was our big, So when I was like 16 or something, we had a round baler. So we only did small, we only did a few loads of square bales a year, but.
Just enough for like the calves and stuff.
Yeah. The calves and the fresh cows. Some nice, some really nice stuff. But so I always got I got lucky, I'd say. I did enough to know I didn't want to do a lot,
Those nice 95-degree days.
Yeah, and it's never cold, right? Yeah, it's I did get lucky because I never had to go in the hay mow. I had bad asthma as a kid, so I couldn't, and I was allergic to hay actually, which wasn't very convenient for having to do
You're
hay.
Allergic to hay?
Yeah, hay. So it's hay, straw, dust.
Really? I didn't know that.
And I surround myself with that every day in agriculture, right?
Wow. I guess the if you get stuff on like the breakout on your arm, you just tell people it's your sunburn.
Yeah, it hasn't been too. I've grown out of most of it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's gotten better as you age.
It's not nearly as bad as what it used to be. So, Right. So that's my start in agriculture, I guess we'll say, and developed a little bit. And
So what was it like going from growing up working on a 60 cow dairy? Suddenly you go to Dale Mattoons, and it's 24-hour milk, essentially 24-hour nonstop, what, 6, 7, 800 cows. What was that like?
yeah, so yeah, Dale had 1,000 cows shortly after I got there, basically. So he was I guess my transition was kind of Cornell, basically, right? Like, so I wasn't like, one day I was 60 cows, the next day I was 1,000, right? I got to make a little bit of a transition through the Dairy Science Club, and
I guess, working for Aikens.
Yeah, it was a few, hundreds of cows there, right? And and then being able to just go see, and the exposure I got at Cornell is just invaluable, right? Like, everybody talks about, your don't let your school get in the way of your education, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I think, the schooling was really good and really important, but then the biggest value I got was like our trips to Germany and Italy, and going, I went to California and Colorado, and being able to just see and look at all these different dairies and how they function and how they work and how the business model looks and all those aspects of it. And then being on Dairy Challenge, I really loved that. That was what kind of actually sealed the deal for me to go into dairy farming coming out.
Yeah, because you were on the part of National Dairy Challenge.
Yeah. We won, by the way.
You won, yeah.
In case you forgot. Yeah.
Oh no, I did. Thanks for reminding me. You had to. That was just a quick little tangent. That was like, was that in? Where was that? Was that in Syracuse? Is that out in
Indiana?
Indiana.
It was in Indiana. Yeah. We
okay,
I think out to Indiana, I think outside of Fort Wayne.
Wasn't it like when you guys presented, you had so many slides, you were basically like speed reading while you were presenting? Because you're timed, right?
Yeah.
In terms with your presentation.
The Dairy Chat, it's a 20-minute time limit. I remember it very vividly. We practiced. There's a 4-person team. So it was Cassie, Rocco, Anna, and myself. And the 4 of us, we practiced it's funny. So all through college, right? Like, I struggled to wake up for those early classes, right? Like any, college kid, right? Just, but then the second semester of my senior year, right? So my last semester, I had a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class at 8:05 that was required to graduate. And the professor was friends with my grandmother, right? So
yeah,
had to go.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday, Thursdays at 7 a.m., we were in Morrison Hall practicing for Dairy Challenge, right? So every day of the week, I was waking up college early. It's not as really,
not early now.
Yeah, not early
That's
now. Now it's like, sleeping
that'd
in,
be
right?
nice.
8 o'clock start, great. Yeah. Now, yeah, but right. So then it was like, so it's funny though, and it was almost fun because I enjoyed it. It was just, like once you find what you really like and enjoy, all of a sudden it's just easy, right? So it's like classes at Cornell. Some of the classes at Cornell are hard, right? Like chemistry, biology, right? Like, you just
we know chem, right?
Statistics. I mean, you want to feel. Cornell can make you feel dumb if you don't know. But no, they did but the Dairy Challenge. So back, sorry, we got a little tangent.
That's fine.
To focus on the Dairy Challenge aspect of it. So for our presentation, right, the 4 of us we'd practiced and prepared all semester, and we get there and the night, so you tour the dairy, and then the night before you prepare your presentation, and the day of you run through it a few times. Right? So we'd run through it and practice, and we had it clocked perfect, right? Like every person, it was like 5.5 minutes, 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Or whatever. And and then gave ourselves like 30 seconds leeway. So we, everybody's a little less than that or whatever.
Yeah.
So we start presenting, and every practice run, I think Cassie was going a little too fast, right? She was just that nervous excitement you get, right? So we're just like, hey, Cassie, just relax, take it easy, and just walk your way through your slides. You'll do great. Like, she's brilliant. Like, she knew her numbers. Yeah. She's really good.
Very good.
And so all the practice runs, she was a little quick, and we're like, that'll be fine. Like, we'll have plenty of time to do whatever we want to do. So she starts talking, and she listened to us and calmed down and went through her slides slowly and took like 6.5 minutes, right? Like, and she did an amazing job and presented really well, and it was really great. And all of a sudden, we all realized, like Anna, Rocco, and I realized, like, all of our presentations have to go from 5.5 minutes to 4 minutes. Like, we got to shave, like, but the problem is it's already set, right? You have X number of slides you got to get through, right? And the transitions are set up at the certain slide points, right? So it was Cassie, Anna, myself, and then Rocco. Because I was keeping time. I had a stopwatch, and so that way I was going to signal Rocco when we got close. So Cassie goes and she's comfortable as can be. And then Anna gets the mic and like put auctioneers to shame, right? Like this girl just starts flying, right? And like the whole time Cassie's talking, like the judges are all sitting there taking notes, like, oh yeah, that's a good question to ask, you know. And then Anna starts talking and she's just like, boom, bullet point, like as fast as she can. And then she's just like, and the judge just sets his pen down, right? Because
he can't keep up.
He just sits back and just watches and listens and just soaks it up. And Anna just like, I mean, I think she did it in like 4 minutes flat, right? Like she took 5 minutes and shaved like 5 minutes. That was like full 5 minutes. And
yeah.
Shaved it down to 4. Hands it to Rock, like throws it at Rock, right? It wasn't like normally it's like a casual, like, here you go, you're up next. You know, it's just like boom, like, or to me, it was me. So and I tried to speed up a little bit, but I didn't have that ability. I shaved like 30 seconds off or something.
She did all the work. She caught you guys back up.
She got us close.
Yeah.
She didn't. Well, she did. That was the thing. She didn't even get us caught up. She got us close.
Okay.
So then like I helped a little bit, and then Rocco took over. And Rocco, like he turned it back up too. Like, so he's flying through slides, right? And presentation and points and all these detailed, you know, like dairy analytics and stuff. And then, I'm waiting. So then the cue was like at 30 seconds to go, I like tapped him on the back, right? And then with 15 seconds to go, I like grab his arm. So like, and he's flying blind until then, right? Like, you know,
yeah, he doesn't know
because we figure at worst case scenario, you just you just cut the last slide out, right? You know, it's kind of the way you prepare, you know, like because the penalty's like super severe
if
right?
you go over.
Yeah, it's you know, so we got right up to it, and like as he's getting to his last slide, I like tap him on the back, and he just like ratchets through it, and I never got to. We stopped, like it was like 19 minutes and like 54 seconds or something, you know. It's like in a 20-minute limit, right? You know, it's like, and then, like the judges afterwards, the judges are like, "It's okay to breathe now," you know. It's just, but it was an awesome experience. Mike Van Amberg and Betsy Holland and Jason Carsey's that led that kind of, and Sam Pheasant helped put that team together. So
okay, yeah, obviously it didn't hurt you because you still won. So
we did really well.
You had the information.
We had the right info and hit all the points and kind of yeah. It was exciting and a lot of as one of those experiences, a lot of fun. So yeah, so kind of from there I transitioned into then managing at Mattoons. Dale was I grew up with, you know, he grew up in the same county or whatever, and grew up with his daughters, and he gave me it was an awesome opportunity to both learn a lot about dairy farming and then actually do a lot, right? So he threw me into essentially a dairy management role. And I was partnered up with Adam Young there from the start, and Adam was a great teacher too for a young guy coming out of college like that I was. So we got to build, and it was so exciting because 2014, I'm sure you remember 2014, milk prices were great, right? Record highs basically.
Grain was low, milk was high.
I came into the dairy industry and I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like, this is so much fun. Like, we built barns, we renovated barns, and Dale had been, you know, to Dale's credit, like it was his business plan and model that put himself in position, right? Like he'd positioned himself and he's like, all right, you know, and then he got the pieces in place and was able to make this expansion happen, you know, that he kind of did and pieced together. And he's a really great businessman. I was able to learn a lot from him, both about dairy management and business and life. I mean, you know, the things you learn, you know, when you work that many hours and that closely with somebody, you get to
know him,
be good friends and learn a lot from him. So I owe a lot, you know, of my traits, the different traits management traits that I have to Dale. And I catch myself sometimes sounding a lot like him, you know, which, so that's good. But no, so I got to do dairy management at a large scale there, right? So you had 1,000 cows and putting together different pieces and parlor running 24/7, right? So that was my first experience with like midnight phone calls, right? Like I think you and Beck got talking about this a little bit one time. Like, yeah, like, you know, when the phone rings in the middle of the night, you got to pick it up and talk Spanish, you know, like it's just kind of a fun. I mean, I still think it's fun. I kind of got to, you know, it's not great in the moment, right? You know, 2 a.m. you don't want to wake up and talk Spanish necessarily.
Sometimes you can barely speak English when you wake up at 2 a.m.
It's not easy, right? It was an exciting and fun learning curve, and I got to do a lot and learn a lot and just really develop as kind of a person and a manager and a business leader, basically, I guess we'll call it. And from there, I had the need or desire to move. After 4 years, it had worked out well, and it was kind of on to the next opportunity for me. And at the time, Zuber Farm, so our good friend Anika was looking. Their family's operation was looking for somebody.
They're out Batavia way.
Yeah. So they're just in Elba, New York, which is or the onion capital of the world.
Yeah.
So got to move out there and work for them. They've got a 3,000 cow operation on 2 sites. So going from Dales, where my role was kind of overseeing all the operations and not having a ton to do like hands-on with the cows, and then going there and being able to really kind of develop some of those cow skills and spend a lot of my time working with the cows more directly, actually. And as the scale, from 1,000 to 3,000 cows raised 3 times as much, but it requires so much more specialization as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Like, sure, you probably bounce around all day, like you must do 1,000 things and different things in a dairy. You do 5 different roles, 6 different roles.
You're feeding calves and milking cows, a tractor to everything.
So being able to kind of make that transition and see the differences was eye-opening for me, for seeing what the dairy industry is at that scale, because there is a difference between 1,000 and 3,000, basically. So that to the point where like a lot of my job was just working with the cows. Like at Dales, I did a lot more with like the feed and doing different analytics type stuff and working. But then at Zuber's, the role was more like where the gap was the cow work. I'm working with breeding and working with the cows themselves on a day-to-day basis type thing. So
kind of almost like overseeing employees and people to more you're overseeing the herdsmen work more or less than kind of the transition.
Yeah, and still working with it, kind of leading a group of people. That's kind of is my whether it's my natural tendency or I guess it's just so it's just a small, instead of leading all the different aspects of the dairy, kind of just focusing on leading the herdsman crew, right?
Okay.
So a smaller crew or a more specific crew, but, so that was it was different, the Zuber family is one of the greatest families I've ever met and had the pleasure of working with. And Eric and Mike, they'll still call me up sometimes just to see how things are going, and I still super close with Anika, and they're just amazing people, and I loved working there, and that was really good.
What was it like having 2 sites? Did you more or less stay on one, or were you floating, or how was it? Were there two parlors? One was a heifer site, one was a dry cow site. So how was it set up?
So two parlors. The main farm is where kind of all the action was. It was the bigger parlor. So all the breeding was done at that site. And all the cows freshened at one site. So the second site was more just for that was where we had later lactation animals that were pregnant. So there would be recheck pregnancies and dry off checks. But most of the time, it was kind of like a tail end, cows that are further along in lactation, just kind of go there, milk them, feed them, milk them, let them get to the point where we're going to dry them off and then bring them back to the dry cow pen. So
yeah, it's a lot less labor intensive then, because they're basically just hanging out, chilling.
Yeah, they're kind of at the point in their lactation where they're just milk until until you're kind of ready to stop making milk, basically.
So would you have to haul animals, or was it close enough, like were the farms side by side so you could run them?
It's a couple miles.
Okay,
so
you had to haul.
Yeah, you'd haul back and forth, but
not
it's like the mixer wagon would just drive there, right? Like it's not like we had to haul feed back and forth too often.
Okay.
So like the mixer wagon, it's close enough that the mixer wagon could drive there and deliver feed. And they did, they do a nice job. They do it. They're really good businessmen. And Eric, he's got a mind for milk marketing. So the other big perk that I had in my dairy industry, right? So I got to work with a couple great milk co-ops. So part of Dale was part of the milk plant in Auburn there in CMI, and Eric is an influential member, and then a big part of the upstate Niagara board. So being able to work with some of the larger independent milk co-ops in New York, I kind of got some insight into how, just the different there, because they're 2 different styles of co-op, and CMI is relatively new, kind of especially compared to upstate. And, that exposure really let me see the woes and the ups and downs of the milk marketing. So from 2014, we as I started my dairy career at the high point and then spent the next, I guess 3 or 4 years of just like skimming by. And, there was a tight year, and then there was a year, essentially a year at a loss. And like, okay, how do we take what was a really tight business and shave another $1 per unit of production, right? It's $1 per hundredweight. Like, how do we, like the conversations we're having are, how do we cut costs? How do we cut costs? How do we cut costs? Because some of what I guess pushed me away from dairy was this effect of you don't get to control the price you sell your product for, really, right? Like, you have some influence over it, and there's incentives and
with minuscule.
In the grand scheme, 10 cents a hundredweight. Right?
It's something,
your quality
but
premiums, right? Yeah, and it's thing, and there's so many factors, and people who do a really good job, and when you do a really good job at it, you get paid a little better, and your cows perform better, right? The metrics are all there for it, but for me, it's just the constant, and that so the kind of, I guess, the quasi straw that broke the camel's back, right, was when the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden the milk market just tanked again. Right? So the way I kind of viewed it is I've been watching milk prices for 10 years, right? So from 18 to 28 or whatever I am now. And in that 10-year span, there's been one really good year, and then 2 okay years, and then 2 not so great years, and then like 3 or 4 bad years. Yeah. Because that included like 09.
09, which was
right. Yeah. It's like coming, like some of the worst prices ever, right? You thought, well, it can't get worse.
Right when we went into college, that 09 was awful.
Yeah, it can't get worse than that, right? So then you go through those cycles so many times. I just, as somebody, so somebody whose family doesn't have dairy cows anymore, and I still really, I guess maybe, off the record type, I do miss dairy farming a little bit.
It's in ya.
Yeah. I do like the animal aspect and the cows. And so that part of it is, something that I really enjoyed, and really enjoyed the business aspect. And there's in dairy farming, there's a drive for efficiency, right? Like, you guys run it, it's a big part of your model of like feed efficiency, right? With your grazing pastures, or, but a push to be more and more efficient. And then, and as labor costs rise, right, you have to be more efficient and more efficient and more efficient. And then, the model lends itself well to scale, right? Like, so the bigger farm you are, the more scalability there is to it, right? And there's more, just economies of scale that come into play. So that kind of that affected me a little bit. And then the other side of it is that, so Oscar, he's my boss at one of the owners at the winery, and a family friend. So when he was an exchange student at Cornell, my family hosted him. So my family hosted Swedish exchange students when I was a kid. So we had, I think, 7 of them or something. So from when I, from like 10 to, or, from 5 to 15 or whatever, we always had a Swedish exchange student with us every summer, so they were kind of like my big brothers and sisters. So Oscar was one of them that my family hosted. And we stayed in touch with him because he kind of ended up back in the States and came around, and we saw him a lot. And it was a really, it's a great experience for me as a kid, because it was this international, mature college students that would just show up, and they were like,
hang out with,
just like, come play with me, And they were all really great. We had a really great experience with it. Cornell does a nice job with that program. But Oscar's he's been, I kind of joke, he's been trying to hire me, and and it took him kind of 3 or 4 tries almost here of real offers and attempts. And finally it was, with the pandemic, the timing was the pandemic hit, and Oscar called, and he jokes because he got, when he was first talking, he says, "So Pat, how's the milk price today?" That was kind of how he'd start the conversation, just to get a little, it's very familial,
jab,
familial feel to it, so you would get a little jab in here and there. And there's a lot of, so that was kind of the push and pull of those factors kind of led me to say, well, now's kind of a decent time to make a little switch and try it, and let's jump, kind of, I guess I probably wasn't head for feet first, I'd say, into the wine industry, into vineyard management and the wine industry. And I chose, I had to think long and hard about it. It wasn't an easy decision. And part of it was that I wanted to free myself up to be able to do some things, so that the dairy management lifestyle, and the dairy lifestyle, kind of, you get to dairy farm, right? So
Your life revolves around whatever the dairy is doing, essentially.
Yeah. Your life, it's like you dairy farm, and it's hard to do other things if so not necessarily social things, right? Like they're their own difficulties in your social life, but you can't go start a second business, really. It'd be difficult, because you just takes so many hours. It's just hours that dairy farming takes to. So for me, I was like, well, maybe I'll jump into this, the vineyard management and kind of, working in that aspect, and then try to do some other things with my free time, basically, is what I kind of.
So before we get into, did you ever have any? No, you're good. Did you ever have any experience with wine or anything? Did you take you took wines at Cornell, right? So you had some. No, you didn't.
No, I never.
Oscar had a lot of faith in you.
My wine experience. Sorry, you're supposed to pour for the guest first. Actually, I did.
Actually, I should probably be pouring for you, right?
Well, no, it's whoever picks up the bottle. You pour for the other person. Yeah, anyways, the summer sommeliers would be upset with me, but
we'll get into the etiquette of wines.
I'm not an expert on that, so. No, so yeah, it's funny because some people are like, Pat, like vineyard management. What are you doing? You spend your whole life dairy farming and producing it. And it's true, right? I don't. I'm self-admitted that I kind of part of the exciting part for me is that I actually get to jump in and just start I get to learn so much so fast about vineyard management and grape production and grape harvest and winemaking, right? So most of my role is kind of in the field and kind of doing production, the vineyard production itself, right? So I do very little in the winemaking, right? I give a lot of the credit to Fred and Dylan, our winemakers, and they do an amazing job with the products that, and help get the product there. But my experience in wine, or grape production was one intro horticulture class. We talked about grapes one time, and Frank Rossi and David Baker and I had to clean lugs and lugs because we had dozed off in class one time.
We picked grapes and then we put them in those presses,
little
and
hand cranks,
and we filled up. We had grape juice, then you puncture a hole in the top of the plastic half-gallon jug. You could turn it into like a cheap ass wine.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you can make kind of a hooch.
Didn't yours explode?
Somebody's Jay did a nice job. He knew what he was doing.
Blew up.
Somebody's did.
They came back from winter break.
They left it in their
shot up into the ceiling
in their closet, and it exploded in their closet. Yeah, I forget. I remember
who that was.
Intro horticulture with Frank Rossi. Yeah.
See, Intro to Hort was that class where it was the first class I ever stepped foot into. It was a 9:05 on a Monday, and I remember sitting there and he's talking about what we're going to do for the semester and everything. And I'm like, wow, if this is the way Cornell classes is, this is going to be easy. But that was kind of a real
misleading.
Misleading.
Because that class was actually, that was a really
fun.
good class. Yeah, Frank he's just such high energy, all the time that it really kind of kept you engaged. And but so that was my wine. And I did, and I took some soils classes, right, and general agriculture classes, right. So in the focus there, having grown up in it, around equipment and around tractors and operating things and managing people, and I kind of check all the boxes, like equipment operation and management and maintenance and managing people and understanding the business aspect and soil science and erosion and that kind of the base management of nutrient management, right? I understand nutrient management. I have all the education in those things. The only box I didn't check was grape specific, pruning and so it's one of those things like that. That's kind of what I've been just soaking up like a sponge, right? Anything, I'm working with a great team there. We got Taze and was one of our vineyard managers, and Tom and Iberto. Is a lot of fun getting to work with guys who are as passionate as they are. And Fred, himself, Fred and Oscar are the owners there, or the primary owners. There's, some business structure behind it, but.
So how large of how many acres is this vineyard?
So
is it vineyard or winery? Is that two different things?
So yeah, they can be. So a winery can, include vineyards, right? But a winery can also just buy grape juice or grapes from somebody, right? So ours is estate grown. It's, we have an estate basically. So it's estate grown wine that we make. So we have, different vineyard sites. And then we also have, we have 2 wineries. We bought a second winery, they bought a second winery, I guess, before I was there, called Standing Stone. So it's Herman J. Wiemer on the west side of the lake. And then on the east side of the lake, there's a separate vineyard site and winery called Standing Stone. And that's a lot of fun because they actually create, the different sides of the lake actually have different textures and flavors in the wines. And you're able to do different things because the microclimates or the mesoclimates on either side of the lake are different, just based on the prevailing winds and how the heat off the lake affects them.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question before I forget it, is we've got almost 200 acres of vineyard that we're managing or own. And part of that is also a nursery business. So we also grow small vines that we then sell. So
Okay.
we did, I think, somewhere around 300,000 plants this year so we sold, which is
That you guys, not for your own use, but you sold, or they sold.
some of it. So some of it we use ourselves, so we sell it to ourselves, right?
Okay.
But yeah,
it's a totally different entity.
Kind of, yeah. It's its own enterprise, basically. It's
Yeah.
kinda, it's different. The details of how it's managed is,
Yeah.
above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, so but we have a bit, so we bring in material, we take some of our own material and grow vines and then sell vines. We're one of the few distributors in the Northeast. So
Wow.
that's kind of a cool aspect of our production. And that allows us we get to kind of control our own plant material, right? So if there's a really bad winter and there's a lot of winter kill, so a lot of the original vineyard plantings on our sites were in the 70s, right? So some of our vines are 40 years old, but every so often, right, whether it's mechanical damage or frost damage, right, like a vine has to be replaced. So being able to control our own plant material, then we can just replace it when we need to, and or
You don't have to wait on
exactly,
someone.
we're not buying it from a different country or different state, and then we're also able to, when we want to plant a new block or a new vineyard, so there's the way it's kind of, there's vineyard sites, right, which is like your farm, and then in the vineyard site there's different blocks, right? So then in the different blocks there's rows, right? So it's kind of and then in the rows there's plants, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the breakdown.
Yeah.
So so if we want to plant a block, that's what I'm talking about. When we plant a block, it's just a section of the field that, so in a vineyard site you'll have a bunch of different varieties and different blocks and different aspects to it. So that's the fun part for me, is that I kind of come in and get to bounce around between the different sites and work on the different equipment and see the differences in the soil, so the different soils and the different sites create different flavors in the wine even. It's kind of, there's a lot of, we've started to develop recently, they Fred and Dylan and the wineries started to develop very vineyard block specific wines. It's like the one we're actually drinking is it's our biodynamic Riesling.
Okay.
Highly recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you? We'll get into this.
Put the bottle up. Yeah.
I'm not a wine person.
Yeah.
This is really good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Delicious.
No, it's my favorite wine that we have. You want a little more?
Yeah. Fill her up.
Pouring.
Don't want to take an empty bottle home.
Yeah. That's our, but this is our, it's our biodynamic wine. So we'll get into what biodynamic means, but this wine actually comes from a very specific block of, I think, about 60 rows that's just north of the winery, right? So this, I can go and we can walk through the field of where these specific grapes came from. And it's really interesting because 100 yards away, there's another vineyard block that the HJW, so what, Herman J. Wiemer site that we have, that has a different flavor, right? Like the grapes, you can go out there the same day, taste grapes over here, taste grapes over there, and they taste different, right? Like even.
But do they look the same, or are they actually a different variety, or they're the same variety?
Variety,
but
same
they taste
clone,
differently.
It's just, and a lot of it has to do with the soil types and the management. So the most of it's the soil, location, right? So there's the different factors, there's sun exposure, wind exposure, and then just the different soil sites, and then some of it's the age of the vines too, right? There's a lot of different factors in play. One of the fun things that I've kind of one of the bigger differences in vineyard management is, right, these vines are older than I am. Right? So with corn or wheat or annual crops, right, you're managing like for a year, right? Like an annual, even alfalfa, right? Less than 4 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a quicker turnover, right? But so we're managing for decades. Like we're trying to create ecosystems that promote healthy vines that can survive decades of weather variability, right? Harvest variability, all these different factors that occur in a decade, right? And so it's just your mindset has to shift a little bit from like,
we're gonna plow it up. So
yeah, you're never plowing it up, right?
Yeah.
Like our goal is
You
to
don't
like,
want
we
to.
don't want it to, right? You want older vines and because they develop and give you some interesting flavors. So it's a lot of fun.
So what's like, and then is there like every year there's like, you say there's going to be a couple percent of the vines that it's going to get hit with blight. It's going to take some sort of damage. Like you guys anticipate so much kill every year. Like not, it's just a part of the deal, and it's, there's nothing to do about it.
Yeah. So the reason in the Finger Lakes that like all the grape production, like there's a lot of grape production around Seneca Lake, right? And there's a little bit on Cayuga and Keuka, and the reason it's all so close to the lakes is because the lakes actually provide a warming effect in the wintertime. So within a certain elevation of the lake, it's actually degrees warmer, like average and cold. Like, so like, I'm sure you like when it's -10 here, if you go down right by the lake, it's 0 degrees. Right?
Yeah.
It's a significant difference. Right?
Yeah.
For instance, I don't,
Yeah.
don't quote me on,
I know Ithaca, when I would drive back and forth to Cornell that senior year, it'd be 3 to 4 degrees warmer.
Yeah.
Going in, and then 3 to 4 degrees cooler coming back home.
Right. So the climate in New York is literally right on that edge, right? So for grape production, right? So we have a lot of vinifera varieties, so they're not hybrids, right? So there's kind of the two. So our varieties are actually, more like Riesling and Pinots and traditional kind of grape varieties from Europe that we actually graft them onto more hardy rootstocks that survive better in the winter heres. But they require that slightly warmer climate to be able to survive. So that's why all the grape production is so close to the lake, and why there's actually the difference between the west and the east side of the lake. Since there's a prevailing west wind, you get in the wintertime heat that actually radiates more on the east side than the west side.
Makes sense. What if you have ice over? Does that, or is it never? I know, like, I guess certain parts of the lake is shallow enough for ice over. Is that even an issue for where you guys are?
So that's the reason. So the reason it's so popular around Seneca Lake is because it's so deep, it never freezes over.
Okay.
So like the ends kind of do, right?
Yeah.
But the core of the lake, and even, it has. I mean, if in a winter, if the lake freezes over, like
we're probably all screwed.
It's so cold. Yeah. You're kind of, So in terms of I think your original question was about how much we kind of prepare for, or prevent, and vine damage, death. Is that we're really at the mercy of Mother Nature there, right? Like in a nice winter, like a calm winter, there's no death, right? Like there's you don't lose them to cold stress. You lose them to other factors and different things, and different disease pressure and different viruses that can move in. But we build some of that into our nursery inventory, right? And the nice thing is, since it's a business, right? Like we can go and if we don't use them, we can sell them, right? Or it's
someone's gonna have death somewhere, somebody's planting a new site, right? You plant a new site, you got to fill it with vines, right? So it's a balancing act, right? So they do it, we try it, try our best to kind of, okay, we know we need this many, certain times, okay, we know we need this many X amount of vines, so we'll make sure we preserve X for ourselves, and then if there's some extra, maybe we'll find a home for them type thing. So that's kind of how we try to manage it and work our way through that. So I think how do we get off on this tangent? No. Well, you're talking about what kind of wine. It's the bio, what do you call it?
Biodynamic.
So yeah, what exactly, a little bit more about this wine. It's like I said, it's really good stuff.
Yeah. So it's a dry Riesling so it's really fruity on the front end, and it's good. It's, it's very drinkable. We'll call it.
You can
people who are,
you could have a whole bottle and you'd be
and have a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's not going to that bitter, nasty red wine taste.
Right. So people who are professionals at drinking, sommeliers, will be able to tell you actually what the wine is and what it pairs well with. But it is a very good wine, is what I'll, it's my my poor description of how good it. I'm underselling the wine, is what I'm telling you. It's very good. But but it's the reason I kind of part of the reason I bring this bottle when I go places, and not only is it my favorite, but it's also kind of an interesting story. So the biodynamic agriculture is this subset of agriculture. It's something I hadn't really heard about other than here and in vineyard production and kind of crops like that. Long-term crops is where it really creeps in. But it's almost a step beyond organic, actually. So Wiemer, all of our vineyard sites are herbicide free. Everything. If we don't use herbicides, we use mechanical weed control, mowing, and takeouts and hilling up and move. So we kind of move the dirt back and forth. So it's all herbicide free. The main vineyard site we use is actually it's farmed organically. So it's not that it's chemical free. It's just that we only use like copper and some organically certified chemicals to control, and that's really just for disease pressure. So we use as few chemicals as we can, basically, is the goal there. And our real mission and goal of doing that, right? It's our focus is on creating a really healthy vine. Our goal is to put as little detriment on the vine as possible, right? So the concept there is by never, kind of applying as few chemicals as possible. And you never, because anytime you apply a chemical to vine, there is a certain, you're weighing the pros and cons, right? Like, so when you eliminate the disease, right, that's really good for the vine. Mm-hmm. But it does take some toll on the vine itself, right? It's just minuscule, right? Yeah. Most of the time. But our goal is to say, okay, well, we don't want to take any toll on the vine if we can. We want the vine and the environment, the ground basically around the vine, right? So there's deep tap roots, but then there's also shallow roots that soak up the nutrients near the surface. So our goal is to kind of keep that environment as healthy and as nutrient dense as possible. So our vines can really thrive and be naturally resistant to these different things. So it's like, you try to have a healthy cow, the healthier a cow is, and the better you treat a cow during a dry period, the better she freshens in and comes.
You're setting her up for success.
Yeah. So we're trying to set our vines up to be disease resistant, so that, so that way they don't get the virus damage and we don't have the cold to heart damage, right? So now the biodynamic part of it is where, you have to bear with me, Eric. You ready? Buckle up. So
let's hear it.
The biggest kind of the concept of it is, you target the lunar phases of the face of people like the lunar phases for pruning and vineyard management practices and picking the fruit, and different fertilizing applications are targeted for very specific times, right? So the concept is, right, so the moon and astrology and different astrological figures and farming calendar, right, affects how water moves, right? Like the moon affects the tides, right? So there's a subtle effect on the water that's in the plant, right? It's okay. So there's certain times of the month and the year that it's better to go pick the fruit, right? So like it's actually when, kind of when the plant, there's fruit days and root days, and it sounds a little kind of hearsay, but the concept is you're targeting so that way, like when you prune, it's at the moment in time when it'll be least damaging to the vine. Right? Or when you pick the fruit, it's when the fruit's at its optimal point, so it's most concentrated, right? So it's kind of adverse of what you think, but we're actually trying to create a concentrated product. Like we don't want a watered down, nobody likes watered down wine, right? So we're trying to actually create a concentrate. We don't necessarily want these huge grapes that are just full of water. We actually don't pick when it rains a lot, because the plant will soak up a bunch of moisture. I know. And the grapes kind of swell. Mm-hmm. And so we'll wait until that kind of dissipates back out. So the concept there is that we pick at the right precise moment of, when the grape is optimal. And it's now, as much as we sit here, you chuckle about it, right? Because it's like, okay, Pat, sure, it's what's your astrologist say today? How's the pattern looking? Do you break a fortune cookie open?
Yeah. Do you go see a psychic before you come over?
So, as much as we kind of pick and joke on it, we've actually noticed the difference in, like, specifically like the grape skins in that vineyard site are actually hardier. And now correlation, causation, right? Like
Yeah.
there is some research done on it that like, but it goes back to that core concept of what we're trying to do is create this plant that is just naturally healthy and naturally, like, so that way we don't have to interfere. We like our goal is to interfere as little as possible. And one of the things we kind of focus on is you can't, you can't have great wine without really good grapes, right? So that's our goal is like we make our wines in the vineyard is kind of our concept, right? So once the grapes are pressed and the juice is in the tank, we don't chemically alter it, right? We let it's naturally fermented yeast. It's naturally, we're not going in and changing the sugar content or the flavors like that. Like, so we're targeting, our winemakers spend all of harvest. So from September through October into November, tasting grapes every day. They go, all day, every day. They're running around the different vineyard sites trying to find, because they know what they kind of want to make with the wine, so they target the different like times. Like, okay, this vineyard site, we want to pick 10 rows of the 50 rows today because it'll give us the acidity that we want. But we want the last 10 rows to kind of hang there a little longer because the longer you kind of leave it out there, the more ripeness and sugar content it can develop and create almost a sweeter wine, right? So, but the trade-off you make is the longer it hangs, the more time it's exposed to disease pressure. So it's a constant. So our focus is really on targeting specific grapes at very specific moments to create the product that we want.
It's very time sensitive.
Yes. Yeah. Harvest so for me, this is my first year and first harvest. And they tell me I've been spoiled because it didn't rain but like 3 days and it was just beautiful the whole time. And it was one of the easiest harvests ever. And the product looked great because it was a drier year, right? So there's less disease pressure in a dry year. Mm-hmm. And so they tell me I'm spoiled, and it was just a super easy, great harvest, and I'm nervous, that it's gonna get difficult. Yeah.
So would you say this isn't the typical way that most vineyards would pick? They just start on one end and go right through, or are other vineyards, or maybe you don't know, are they targeting? Yeah.
So it's kind of there's different strokes for different folks. A million different ways to skin a cat type concept, right? Like not everybody does it the same way in dairy farming or crop farming or any type of agriculture, right? So it's a concept of so it's our style, right? So a lot of places, and we it's not that we don't do some of that, right? So like we do some machine harvesting, like there's like blocks that we have that perform really uniform, right? Like the whole block will mature like the same day, right? Like there really are like different blocks just perform differently, or we need, there's X amount of this type of product that we need. So go get it on that day, right? So we do some machine harvesting where you just literally just drive down the row and take every grape, right? So the next layer that we kind of add to it is that we actually hand sort everything. So all the grapes that come into the press pad. So you pick them in the field and we either hand pick them into like crates that we stack up and bring, or machine pick them into bins and then we dump the bins. But everything goes across a table basically, and there's a group from anywhere from like 4 to 6 people at a time just watching grapes go by on either a shaker table or a belt, sorting out. We're picking out like physical material, right? Like every so often like a nail can end up in there, in the machine harvested stuff, or any kind of different bacteria or bad grapes or underripe grapes or anything that like we don't like that's like or even like stink bugs, right? Like or ladybugs, because that'll affect the taste of the wine, right? So we put all that effort into making sure that we can put as good a grape juice into the tank to start fermenting as we can. So that not so not only is it on the vineyard management side, right, from like day one, right? Like we're picking really great varietals and clones that we use, and then we're also using really high quality. We try to use really good fertilizer, and then we try to manage the grapes accordingly, and then we try to pick at the exact right moments and reduce disease pressure, right? And then we also try to move into the next phase of like, okay, now that we got the product, we need to keep it good, right? So then in the winery we try to like, okay, how do we mix the wines, right? So because there are certain, so the blending process, right? So certain wine, some of our vineyard sites, so some like our dry and our semi-dry wine, right? They're not it's going to be grapes from multiple different blocks and multiple different picks. So I think it's like 20 some odd picks or something, different picks.
Mm-hmm.
So different spots that go into a single wine sometimes. So that's kind of the fun part of even, so this wine comes all from one specific block, but it could have been 2 different days. Maybe we went out and got some early to get that acidity just to make sure it was there and reduce the risk of losing part of the crop. So that was kind of the approach that Wiemer takes is our focus is we're just every step of the way, we're trying to keep that product really as high quality as we can.
Wow.
And so there's different vineyards and wineries do great jobs doing it different ways, right? I'm not standing here telling you like this is the way it should be done, right?
It's just one. Yeah,
it's our style and
it
the way
works
we've
for
done
them
it.
and how they have. Sounds like they take a lot of. I'm sure all wineries do, but it sounds like they put a lot of that harvesting time is like probably harvesting. What is it? It takes a couple months. It's typically in the fall, right? What?
Yeah. So we started Labor Day or right after Labor Day. I think we ran all the way through October.
Okay.
And it was a perfect harvest. They tell me.
Yeah.
So it's
no rain.
It's kind of. It was like an 8 to 12 week window, basically.
It's kind of like if you're to take first, second, third, fourth haylage cuttings and corn cutting and throw them all together and trying to get that perfect.
Yeah.
You don't want to be too late. You want to have the right dry mat. It's kind of it's trying to bring it back to dairy terms.
Go ahead.
It's I kind of see it like that. It's even more precise because you typically aren't going out there and chewing on a corn cob to find out if it tastes a certain way. So. That's interesting. I didn't know all of that, so that's really cool.
Well, that's I might have been rambling there for a little bit, but that's been so exciting for me to be able to learn this, right? Like to just be thrown into this, like it's all new, right? It's all new to me, and I might have just told like 5 lies there. I don't even
Fact check us.
Yeah, somebody.
You might get my channel banned, Patrick.
A fact checker might have to come in here.
Some wine guy's gonna come after me.
Have Jay come. Let him quit lollygagging down there. I told him I wouldn't steal all the vineyard thunder.
He was like, I was gonna have him on earlier, but then he had to decline. But hopefully he'll be coming on later. And he's like, I'll let Pat be the wine guy for now, but I'll come back on later.
He and I have a lot of fun going back and forth.
So your wine, but then you also, like you said, you alluded to having to be able to get into other businesses. So why don't you jump into that one?
So this is where so the people, everybody I kind of talked to, they could understand the transition dairy management to vineyard management. A lot more free time.
I understand. That made sense.
Enjoyable, right? You get your days off and weekends and see a little bit of seasonality to it, right? So harvest is crazy, right? If the sun's shining and the weather's good, you go and pick grapes, And we tried to make sure everybody got days off and time off, but like you're working hours.
Mm-hmm.
There's just you got to put in the time because it's time sensitive, right? You got to get it today, right? You got to get it now, or it's gonna rain tomorrow, so you got to go pick some more today. So that way you put it in the cooler overnight and process it tomorrow. But so there's that aspect of it, but. Like this time of the year, right? It is slower. It's just naturally, right? Like the plants have gone dormant. We're doing some pruning and doing some stuff, and kind of catching up on equipment maintenance and fixing things and planning for next year. But it definitely is a more relaxed pace. It's a lot nicer than that. But what that's allowed me to do is that I've now picked up this. I call it my side venture. We'll see how it develops. So now in October, right? So in the middle of harvest. My boss Oscar approached me. I joke, he's my boss. He's a family friend, my boss, and now my business partner. So Oscar approached me with an opportunity so Spotted Duck Creamery was an established ice cream business and stand. So we make ice cream using the duck eggs. So it's technically an ice cream custard, but the duck eggs are unique because they provide an extra richness and creaminess to it. So I brought some.
Yeah, want me to go grab some?
Yeah, you can grab it and serve it up. I'll keep talking.
Keep talking.
So the duck eggs, yeah, they provide a little bit of an extra creaminess and richness to it. So the Spotted Duck business was that they had 200 ducks, or a couple hundred ducks essentially, wherein we and then we use that, and our focus yeah, show the lids, right? Yeah, the focus is and it's available if you go follow us on Instagram or Facebook. You can we're open on weekends from 12 to 6. I gotta my pitch. Yeah. That's what I'm here to advertise. So we our focus though is really, so even on the product here, is that it's a lot of local ingredients. So we buy all the ingredients that we go into. We get as much of it as we can from local sources. So like the duck eggs, come from our backyard. Throw that anywhere, Eric.
We don't use that one.
But our and like the milk comes from a local dairy farm where he it's it's actually organic grass fed milk, right? So it's kind of unique because we don't demand a ton of milk, so he only has 8 cows, right?
Oh, okay.
But he does a nice job with those cows, and he has a few other businesses, right? That's not all he does, but so the opportunity came up where the previous owners wanted a little bit of a change of a pace. They saw that the business had the potential to grow and develop, but it's a husband and wife that started this business, and they had a family of, I think it was 4 and now 5 kids, or 5 and now 6. It's a growing family, right? So they wanted to be able to kind of not have to run a business 24/7. So that's kind of their hope, was to be able to step back. So it created this opportunity where Oscar was helping to consult on how to, like, the potential of this business, right? And how it could grow and develop and sell. And Oscar kind of was thinking and looking at it. He said, man, that's a pretty good business model. Maybe we can kind of put together a group of people and we can take this, So another guy that was interested was Sam Solomon, who owns Pizza Posto, which is a wood-fired pizza truck based out of Geneva. And he used to go to Spotted Duck and kind of serve pizzas. So he makes the best pizza. I mean, if you think you've had good pizza, you haven't. Like, go try it. It's delicious. It's and fresh out of a wood-fired oven. Like, you can't beat it. Like, it's made to order. You go up and order it. They then put it in the oven and hand it to you. He does an awesome job, and he spent time. He's a Hobart William Smith graduate and spent time in Italy learning how to, like, the process and the systems and, like, how to do it. So he's done a really great job with that. And then so he had interest in this because he saw it as a way to, like, park his truck and develop his business, but also that, like, this Spotted Duck brand has so much potential. That was kind of, so we're all kind of coming at it from different aspects. But so Sam sees it, he's excited and, energy, and I'm excited, and Oscar's excited. So then Oscar approaches me because I was house hunting in the area at the time. Just, it's a good time to buy a house in my mind. And I thought, well, I'm getting older, it's a good time to settle in and get a house. And, gonna try, make a real go of this and get a house and, see what happens. So then he says, hey, Oscar, was one day, it was a Saturday or something. And Oscar says, hey, I want you to come and meet me, at this place. It's called the Spotted Duck. I got an opportunity. So we pull in and I'm talking to him. He says, what do you think? You got any interest in living here? And I was like, well, I could, yeah. Like, what are you thinking? He says, do you want to take care of the ducks?
Wait, so the Spotted Duck it's a brick and mortar, but then there's a house and, like, a barn with it?
Yeah. Okay. So there's an ice cream stand, and then across the driveway, so 20 yards away or whatever, is the house, and then out behind that is the barn with the ducks and the pasture for the ducks. And
that's where the husband, wife, and the kids lived.
So they lived there, and they worked in the stand, and they make the ice cream there, and everything's real local, or localized right on it. So for us, it was, it's like, well, we don't really, none of us have, like, a family or free time that we can do it all. So the three of us kind of teamed up, and Oscar's like, well, we need a farmer, so I kind of
dairy farmer.
So I joke, yeah, I'm Farmer Pat, so it's October, I think it was maybe 13th. I started taking care of the ducks. It's like, I was like, yeah, I think I could do this. I can figure out how to feed ducks, and I can, so I worked with the previous owners, and we're still working with them. They haven't, they're super passionate about what they've created, and we join them in that passion, right? It's just like, this is an awesome product, right? So you're going to taste it here. I know everybody thinks I'm crazy. Like, Pat, ducks? What are you doing with
Yeah,
ducks?
I thought it was a joke when you first told me.
You said ducks?
Yeah.
Did you misspeak?
You're talking about like the big white ones, right?
Well, so we have two types of ducks. So the reason it's called the spotted duck is because we have Ancona ducks, which are these black and white spotted ducks, which are they're not the biggest. They're a little smaller than those big white ones.
Those white ones are pricks.
Yeah. Yeah. So these ones they're a little friendlier, I guess. But so we have those, and that's where the name comes from. And then we also have what are called khaki Campbells, which are browner ducks, and they're a little smaller, but they lay more eggs. They're kind of they're our workhorses. They're the spotted ducks. They look cool. The Anconas look cool, and they're nice. They do a good job. But the khaki Campbells, they really pull it home. So that's kind of how the initial formation was. The three of us sat down at a table at the ice cream stand one night, and we're like, what if we did it like this? What if you so Sam's role is, he's running he's kind of the day guy, and he's running kind of the operations of the business, because Oscar and I both have full-time jobs, right? And Sam has his pizza truck, which will be parked at the ice cream stand, and then he'll be helping run the ice cream stand, and
makes sense. He's right there.
Yeah,
he's in food.
Yeah, and he
knows all
Oscar's,
that.
Yeah, and my role is like kind of managing the estate, and then like taking care of the ducks, right? So like my life now is again. So I take care of the ducks in the morning, and I feed and water the ducks in the morning and collect eggs, and then I go off to my winery job. Go to the winery and work there all day. At the end of the day, I come home and I wash some eggs, and just to get the big chunk, the big manure off them or whatever, and put them into the refrigerator so that they keep a little better. And then I put the ducks in at night. So like after our recording, I got to go back so that way I can just close the door up.
Don't let the fox get them.
Yeah, you got to keep
So to get away from the animals, so you had more time, you ended up going back to animals so you could take care of them twice a day.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You need an electrical gate where like it's timed at 10
o'clock.
Gate, it closes, and just by the process of elimination, the dumb ones will eventually get killed off, and you won't have any more dumb ones, and they'll.
That's right. Yeah, survival of the fittest.
Yeah, survival of the fittest. That's what I want to say.
Our goal is to keep the ducks alive. So, so we've got almost 200 ducks, 12 chickens, 2 roosters, 4 guinea hens, 1 Canada goose that thinks it's a duck.
Did he just show up and join the crowd?
When it was a gosling, it imprinted on the herd or on the flock.
What does that mean?
So it's imprint. So the imprint. So when there's baby poultry, right? The first thing they see, they assume is like mother.
Oh,
okay. Or friend, or this is my family. So somehow it got it. I don't. They don't know how it got there, but it's there, and it thinks it's a duck. I kid you not. This goose, like, it could fly away. Like, we haven't done anything to this goose that, like, there's no reason for this goose not to fly away, other than the fact that it thinks it's a duck.
Even though it's like twice the size.
It's probably twice the size, and it sticks out. But it runs around with the ducks, and it isn't friendly. It's as friendly as all the ducks are.
Can you use their eggs too? Or is it you want specific duck eggs?
No. We think we can. I'm gonna admit something. I don't actually know if it lays eggs. I haven't made the effort to figure out if it's a boy or a girl.
Oh, okay.
Every so often there's a really big egg, and I think those are the goose eggs. But the duck eggs, for reference, on average are jumbo eggs. Right, so the duck egg, the reason we like the ducks is that it's a bigger egg and it's a richer egg. I forgot to bring you duck eggs, Eric. Man.
Justin Fee's and Jamie have
given
me
few.
duck eggs. Those suckers are like,
they're big and they're rich,
big.
And
yeah.
So the proteins are actually a little different. The protein profile in the duck egg is a little different than a chicken egg, so it's actually better for you.
Okay.
Margin.
Was it like less cholesterol, less fat, and it's more protein?
It's actually a little more fat.
Okay.
But it's healthy. It's those healthy animal fats.
Okay.
The bad rap that eggs and butter got are actually, it's like, oh wait, that's actually good.
Yeah.
Well, eggs and butter are good for you, and whole milk is good for you.
Instead of eating margarine, which is
that's right. Yeah,
plastic
that flies don't like. Right. So that's the duck egg process or rationale that we use the duck eggs for.
So, and then with having eggs in this, does the pasteurization take care of the whole like raw egg?
Yeah.
thing?
So you're right. Yeah. So the mix that we make the premix, right? So, but so it starts as a liquid, right? So that's up to 180 degrees.
Okay.
When we add the eggs, so it is. The process we have is approved by the health department, right? Yeah, we're not just out here throwing eggs, throwing them over our shoulder.
Throw
a couple eggs in there, No, there is an approved.
Puts hair on your chest.
Yeah, yeah. We're well aware that like E. coli is real. We need to,
Yeah.
So we hired an ice cream maker. He used to work for Van Leeuwen, which is this ice cream brand based out of New York City and Los Angeles. It's really makes some really good ice cream. So, and Robert and his wife Tula work for us, and they are exceptional. Robert, he just has a passion for ice cream and desserts, and he came in and loved what we were doing, and I mean, he's just taken off. Like, we're having a lot of fun with it. It's turning into this really fun project, basically. So like Oscar Salmon, it's kind of a startup business that's already established. There's a little kind of an in between type thing, right? So like we kind of took over the business, and now we're trying to grow it and turn it into something more.
And it's all year round.
Yeah, so this is the first year that we've been open in the wintertime. So we're like courts are available now, and then Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 6 they're serving scoops out of the stand. Cool. We're not doing Sundays, we're not doing all like in the summertime we actually do flights too. We do ice cream, like wine flights, tasting flights. We'll do ice cream flights. You get a tray and you can try 12 flavors.
Oh, nice.
So you get 12 scoops, so you and your friend can come and or whoever you're with and try all 12 flavors.
This sounds like something you could almost like franchise, because you just need a brick and mortar with someone who can make ice cream. You give them your recipes and they have to raise, as long as they're not dumb enough to be able to raise, as long as they can raise ducks.
Ducks are great, man.
Ducks seem like they're probably pretty low stress, pretty
ducks
easy
going. They're underrated, I think, in my book. They're really great. They're naturally disease resistant, right? So they're also weather resistant, right? So you think a duck, right? Like, is covered in down feathers, right? So it's waterproof, windproof, and warm, right? Like just right off the bat, it's prepared. Like the weather really doesn't bother a duck, right? So then you just have to focus on kind of the animal basics, right? Like it needs high quality, clean water, right? So water is super important for ducks. Like it's true, right? They're ducks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it makes sense, right? So they need clean water, fresh water every day. And then we have a high quality feed blend that we get from Lakeview Organic Grain Company that they custom make, a custom blend for us that was developed by the previous owner. And it's set up, it's got, and it's corn, it's mostly corn and, different small grains. And then we put a little mineral package in it, just to kind of, it's important for the actually consistency of the eggs to get that hard shell. So, high quality feed and water, right? And plenty of it, right? Ample, free choice basically all day. And then good shelter at night, right? So then, and it's just straw bedding and some nesting boxes. And the biggest difference between ducks and chickens in terms of like eggs is that the ducks hide their eggs. So ducks. So every day I spend my morning hunting for duck eggs. So
within their building.
So yeah, so they tend to lay them in the early morning. So part of the reason I lock them in at night is so that way they don't run outside and lay eggs wherever they want. Right. Not only is it to protect them from predators, but when I go in there at 7 a.m., I need to be able to find the eggs. Right. So, but they don't, like chickens put their eggs in a nesting box. Right. They roost in the nesting box. That's where the eggs are. Right. They don't lay them everywhere, right? They don't just hide in a corner somewhere. But duck eggs, like when I walk in for the duck eggs, sometimes there's one that's just like in a pile of straw in the middle of the floor, but it's hidden. It's like they cover it in straw because it's a natural instinct for the ducks to hide their egg. Because in the wild, right, they have to shelter them while they go and eat or drink or whatever. So like I have to go around and like I don't know how many eggs I'm gonna find in each box. I have to kind of like filter around, and a lot of times they're like I know we're kind of, I know their hiding spots. I figured them out, These ducks, I got them figured out. Everybody.
They had you the first week.
I got them. I got them. I got them on the ropes. But but they literally cover it so the eggs are covered by straw at different times. So you can move the straw and it's like, oh, there's 12 eggs. So it's been a lot of fun for me being able to kind of just learn this different aspect and bring kind of what I know about the basics of, taking care of an animal, right? Food, water, shelter, right? Like there's these basic just instincts of like, okay, And then with ducks, it's kind of fun because you get to play around with the lighting, right? So we do extended lighting. So to keep them laying eggs in the wintertime and throughout the year, right? We provide levels of, so the lights turn on at 4:30 in the morning. And then once the sun comes up, they turn off. And then they turn back on when the sun goes down, so that they stay lit until 9 o'clock at night.
They think photo period, it's like summer all the time.
It feels like summer, and that's how you can kind of keep them producing
throughout.
Yeah, throughout the year. So
yeah, let's try.
We'll serve a little bit of the ice cream up here, so that way it doesn't get too melted on us.
Yum!
So I brought our butterscotch brownie.
Ooh,
it's getting a little. Yeah, we'll have to hurry up here, and it's getting a little melty. But so this is. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, fire or give it a try and get going on it. Our butterscotch brownie is actual real brownie chunks, and then it's got one of our mixes. I've cornered myself. We start with the different ice cream bases, and then the other one that I brought is our real cookies and cream.
Wow, that's really good.
So
I'm glad you brought 2 quarts of it.
Yeah. I might have to leave some here. Is that what you're telling me? Yeah.
Oh. Wow, those chunks are unreal. The brownie chunks are gigantic.
Yeah, the brownies and the cookies and cream are actually, some of them are made with our chicken eggs, right? So I get duck eggs and chicken eggs, right? So the cookies and cones we make every day, and they're made with the eggs from our farm store, right? So we're trying not to waste any product and utilize everything that we make. And so the cookies are homemade secret. It's a secret recipe. I think.
They are good.
It's secret. It's a secret.
You just went to number 1 of all time for my podcast so far. This is great.
Just had to bribe you to get there, huh?
Yeah. That's for anyone else who's gonna be coming on eventually. Just if you bring me food, you'll be one of the top people.
Move up the list fast, right? So, it's really exciting too, because it's just so different, right? Like, my grandfather gets a kick out of it. So he's 93, and he started in agriculture when he was in his teens. He worked for the first rotary dairy in the United States there, and back in a long time ago, I think is in the 40s. When would that have been?
I don't know.
Anywho. And he's told me that I really need to record and keep track of what we're doing, because it's just a wild story in his mind of what we're doing with Spotted Duck and different things, and I think it's a lot of fun. And we're creating, so it's funny, I won't lie, I was a little skeptical, like duck eggs, like that's this, and I was like, man, this seems like a questionable business model. But then you taste the ice cream and you say, okay. Nope. Yeah. We're good.
Duck eggs,
we're good.
I don't care. Throw some more in. That's fine. Yeah. When you told me, I saw you back in August, like working for a winery. Cool. Ducks. What are the ducks for? For the ice cream. I'm thinking, why would you put eggs in ice cream? But I'll tell you firsthand, eggs and ice cream are delicious.
Great's a really good, but yeah. So
very creamy.
Super creamy, rich, and yeah.
Wow.
So and it's kind of funny because we have the same focus, right? So our goal is we source as many ingredients as locally as we can, right? So that system of getting your product from local sources, right? I think it fits with agriculture and fits with food products well and distribution well. And knowing where your food comes from, right? Like, I don't stand here and tell you that, like, you have to, organic production is the way to go and it's healthier. No, I think, like, understanding where your food comes from and how it's produced is more important, right? So I think, like, go learn about how your food is produced, right? It's difficult, and that's kind of part of the reason I wanted to come on here and be like, listen, like, we're creating a really cool product, I think, and it's something I want, like, it's fun because you get to learn about it, right? Like, we list our ingredients, right? Like, a bunch of them are certified organic, and then most of them are locally sourced, right? As many as we can. Cane sugar. Turns out they can't grow organic cane sugar in New York. So I'll let you know.
Darn.
That's the one we haven't figured out yet. But, like our eggs, our butter, our cream is upstate organic certified cream. we're working on like our different ingredients that we have in the products are as local as we can get. In the summertime, we do some seasonal fruit flavors. And the reason they're seasonal is because we have to have strawberries growing to be able to produce, the strawberry products, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll freeze and preserve some of them, so we kind of extend the season as much as we can. But our goal is to, like blueberries and raspberries and cherry flavors, we kind of go find them when they're ripe, bring them in, and produce a product with them. So it's really exciting because we get to bring in all these different brands and people and things and kind of throw it into an awesome tasting product. That's kind of
Well, I can see why it's successful. Just it's a delicious product, and you have the marketability of it is golden.
Mm-hmm.
With people just love that kind of the local, and like you said, whether or not you think organic is better, or I don't think it is any, but that doesn't really matter. All that matters is you're making a really good product and people like it and they want to buy it. And no, it's delicious.
Yeah, glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. You can throw them back. You should throw them back in the freezer real quick. So
because I'm surprised how quickly they melt.
Well, the problem is I brought them here in a package that didn't keep them super cold. So it's not. A lot of that's my fault, not necessarily the ice cream. The ice cream itself, we store it at -10 degrees.
Isn't it? No, they probably can't hear me asking, but isn't it true that like the faster you make the ice cream, the faster you get it down to below freezing or whatever, it doesn't get that layer of ice?
Yeah. So our goal, part of the ice cream making process, Eric's question was about how quickly we try to freeze our product. And so the way it works, so we take that 180 degree product, right? And we put everything together, make the base mix, so the base mix or whatever it is, and we put that in the fridge. So you have to take, because you don't want to go from 180 degrees to 0. It's hard on the equipment, right? It's just like, you try to do that, it doesn't work very well. So we actually cool the base mix down in the fridge first to get it down to like 35, 40 degrees, right? And we could take that and then we put it into what's called a batch freezer, which is just like a churn. It's just, so that takes it and turns it in, like the product we try to get out of there is essentially soft serve, right? So we get it to that point where it's just starting to freeze up and stiffen up. So it goes in a liquid and it comes out, like a soft serve consistency. And part of the reason for that is because scooping hard ice cream into containers is really difficult, right? So, but we can do quarts, we can do gallons, immediately right out of the machine. So we'll, when you fill a 5-gallon batch, and then you take it and we put it into a flash freezer, a batch, so it goes from the batch freezer into a chest freezer, so the batch freezer, which is the little churn thing, gets it down to below freezing. So for whatever the ice cream is, different ice creams freeze slightly differently, right?
Yeah.
And that's and then towards the tail end actually is when we add in the cookie chunks, right? So it's kind of a funny. So some of the ingredients you can add into the batch freezer and they'll churn and mix in. But if you wanted to add M&Ms or something, you have to have very specific additives and add them at very specific times, because if you add M&Ms in, right, you get all these colored M&Ms and mix them all in. If it's too warm, they just melt and you end up with color
just
streaks,
random rainbow colored looking stuff.
Well, and then they all mix and it's just brown, It's like, oh man, dang,
That's how you learn, right?
Yeah. So, but so there's different times and stages, and that's where having Robert on staff has just been great. He's just this is when you do it. This is how you do it. He knows, right? The learning curve kind of disappeared when he came on, right? Because we got the recipes and everything, but how do you make ice cream, right? So we kind of was able to learn a lot of that from him. And so that part of it, or that process of it, has been a lot of fun, and it's just, so then you take that product, the soft serve consistency product, and we throw it right into a -20 freezer. So the goal is to get it frozen as quickly and as hard as we can, as quickly as we can, right? So then, and a lot of that is just preserving the quality, because the best quality, the highest quality point for that ice cream is when it comes out of the batch freezer. And I kid you not, that is the best ice cream I've ever had. If you think this is good, oh man, when it's fresh, when it's that fresh, it's just gee, Ooh.
If I come visit, can you give me a
Yeah, you gotta time it right
yeah.
for the day we're producing,
Okay,
right? Yeah,
all
that's,
right.
you know,
I'll make sure to get a hold of you ahead of time.
figure out the production schedule and show up at the right moment.
You doing the batch? You doing the batch yet?
Running the batch freezer today. Oh, I'm gonna be a half an hour late. Yeah. So it's and then by doing that, that's when we're able to preserve this product, right? So we get it and store it. We try to store it super cold too, right? So we keep it super cold for storing it, because what you don't want is like a thaw and refreeze, right? Because that's what hurts the quality, right? That's when you start to get that icing layers, and you know, and like this stuff, you know, it's luckily it's only made one trip where it kind of melted a little bit, right? And it tends to be okay if it's only once or twice, but when we're storing it, we keep it super cold all the time, and we've had to invest in some bigger freezers and more freezer space, and we quickly came to the realization, like, we're gonna we need to make sure there's a generator here, because power goes out, we can't lose, you know, freezers full of ice cream. So that was kind of the goal there. So but when we serve it, so it's funny because it's actually almost impossible to scoop at -20. It's just like hard as a rock, and you're like gonna break your arm off, you know. So we actually warm it up a little bit to scoop it and serve. It's about -5 or -2. It depends a little bit on who's scooping, even, you know. So a big, strong linebacker type guy can do it at -4.
Big Pat Redmond.
Yeah, strong Pat Redmond, right? Yeah, you know. And our other, you know, maybe one of the other partners who's a smaller guy, you know, can't quite get there, you know.
He's a few degrees warmer.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. Wow.
So
that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I usually ask people what would they do if they weren't in agriculture. I don't know if you'd want it. Sounds like you're pretty happy with what you're doing.
I'm just gonna keep finding. Yeah, I made ice cream. What do you mean?
Yeah.
And so I went. Yeah, it's kind of. I joke because when I was dairy farming, it was, you know, everybody's like, oh yeah, it'd be fun to come see where you work, Pat, and kind of check out the farm, and it's like, oh yeah, come on over anytime. And a few people would come, right? People really wanted to see a dairy farm. I'd be like, wow, this is kind of cool. But now that I work at a winery and have an ice cream business, people are really showing up. You know, it's like all of a sudden those people who said, yeah, I want to come see what you're doing, they're actually pulling in the driveway now, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's good, you know, and it's a lot of fun. And it's really exciting for me because Wiemer, they do an amazing job in the tasting room, both Wiemer and Standing Stone. So, and for me, it's great because I get to kind of, you know, it's almost like I get to show off, like, guys, this is what we do, and it's great. And I get to expose the product to new people and more people. And then with the ice cream, it's like, come and check out the ice cream. Because, like, you think I'm crazy. You think ducks, Pat, like, you've lost your mind. Like, you went off the deep end. You quit dairy farming, you got into vineyard management, and now ducks, Pat, are you okay? You know, and it's like, just here, you know, try the ice cream.
Try it, yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun kind of getting people exposed to it and to see it. So if I wasn't in agriculture, I guess I'd probably be like a venture capitalist, right? I'd be running around just finding business startups and seeing what I could do, you know, because there's an excitement to starting a business or starting a project like this, where it's like, man, we're putting a lot on the line and we're going to make it work, you know? So it's an excitement that that buzz almost is, you know, it's going to become addicting. I'm a little worried that I may just keep doing this, you know?
Huh?
So stay tuned for my future endeavors, you know? I might be back with a different thing next time, Eric.
Well, there's always sheep and pigs and everything else in between. So
yeah, we're not done yet, right?
So yeah, if you wanted to give a little, what did they have, like a Facebook or anything that websites that people could go on for the wineries and the ice cream place?
Yeah, so if
I can put them in the description, all that.
Yeah,
too.
I can get you this, but it's I think it's Wiemer.com or Wiemer.shop.com or something, you know, for the winery, and then Standing Stone. If you Google either Wiemer Vineyard or Standing Stone, they'll both, you know, show up, and you can buy direct from those shops. And then for Spotted Duck, most of it, I think the best way to find it's either on Facebook or Instagram. We have a page on each that links you to our online shop right now, and that's, you have to go and pick it up, or, you know, if you're listening to this and you know me, I can arrange delivery if, you know, if I like you enough, and if you buy enough. That's kind of the fun part.
A volume discount.
Yeah, well, yeah. So there's it is, yeah, that's kind of the gist of what that was, I guess I feel, yeah, I think I kind of covered everything that I've transitioned from growing up in Scipio Center, New York now to manage ducks. So, and the locations, right? I didn't even. So we're just east of Penn Yan on Route 54, where 14 and 54 intersect. So
That's Spotted Duck.
that's the Spotted Duck, and then south of there in Dundee is the town name for the Herman J. Wiemer, and then on the other side of the lake in Hector, just the part of Hector.
Which lake? That's
Seneca
Seneca.
Lake. That's on Seneca Lake. Yeah, all
Okay.
those are on Seneca Lake. So if you're ever on the Seneca Lake wine trail, like give me a call. I can try to
Wine
help
and
you.
ice cream.
Wine and
it
ice cream.
seems to pair pretty well for me.
The pairing did well. The cookies and cream paired very well with
Yeah,
Riesling.
Those
Yeah.
cookie chunks. I mean, I've talked about before. Cookies are my kryptonite, and man,
I shouldn't
I
even
could
talk.
eat- I could eat that
I'll take the
whole
ice cream
corn.
with me, Eric.
Yeah.
I won't ruin
Yeah,
your.
I might just eat the whole thing. No, it's good. Yeah, no, I highly recommend if you're in the area or anything. The wine and the ice cream are delicious. Pat.
That's great. Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Anyway, yeah. And anything else, or
I think that kind of those are the big things, the big
Okay.
rocks that that I've kind of taken on here, and there'll be a puppy at the ice cream stand this summer too if you're interested.
you got a little guy now?
A little puppy on the way. It's coming.
Okay.
So there'll be a little.
No more cats.
I still have a cat, and it's going to be interesting to see how the two of them interact.
The cat's probably gonna beat the crap out of the dog.
Well, for a short time, but it's not a big cat. So, but yeah, it'll be kind of exciting to see how that goes and what happens with it.
All right. Cool. Well, you probably have to get home here soon to put the ducks in
Before
before it gets too late.
That's right. Yeah, before it gets too late, I do
Your
have to.
whole flock of, was it a flock of ducks are dead, or you don't want that?
It's a row.
A
I believe it's a
row.
row or a boat of ducks because
Oh.
they're swimming creatures. And
Okay. I've learned a lot in this, I must
Yes,
say.
yeah.
I've enjoyed this.
I hope.
thoroughly.
Yeah, I feel like I talked quite a bit, but
No,
it was,
that's what it's about, man.
it was good. So
So anyway, Pat,
yeah,
thank you, my man.
thanks for having me, Eric. And I really hope that remember, subscribe, resubscribe,
Yeah.
like it, comment,
blow it up on
right.
social media. So yeah, no, if you're out that way, stop and see Pat,
Yeah.
and I'll have you back on eventually. You can
Great,
give
see
an
how it
update
goes. Yeah,
when you get your next pig farm or whatever you end
that's
up
right. When
doing.
it develops, that's right.
So
Perfect.
anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.